So, at the previous lesson, I posted assignment 3, and I discussed it to some degree. I missed one important point. I want to say what I missed before we continue with today's topic. You're probably familiar with this point from another course because you are taking a course called Web Mobile Development. It may be shown there, but I'm not sure, so this is why I will quickly show this part, so to avoid questions later. In assignment 3 posted this week, so you can start it if you didn't start it, or you can start it tonight. Because this is based on things that you already know. In assignment 3, I want you to create an app that has two roles of users. So it's about security configuration. And please use templates, because it's impossible to make it without templates. Because I ask you to hide options available only group of cats from dogs, and hide options available only to group of dogs from cats. You can do it only if you have dynamic page. You cannot do it otherwise. So for this reason, you need to use templates, similar way how it is done in our student data too. So there is a reason for using templates. It is to have dynamic hiding of features not available to cats for dogs, and vice versa. Speaking cats and dogs, obviously it's a fictional characters. Real cats cannot log in into data, into program. So for this reason, we just think it's people. It's people, obviously, right? And for this reason, since it's kind of a role play game, maybe you may consider that the person takes the role of cat and dog at the same time. So it's not required, but you may create a user who is cat and dog at the same time. It's not a big deal. But what is required is that you create at least 3 users of each kind, like 3 cats and 3 dogs, and please encrypt this password. For one reason, I want to see that you know how to deal with this issue, and it's easy because there is a program we discussed it before called Password Encoder. It is on Slate. Download it if you didn't do it, and I explain this in class how it works. So just pick this password, encode it, and so you can use it. So you are asked to create index page available to everyone who did login, didn't login, doesn't matter. And you may consider hiding login link if you person already logged in and show logout link instead of login link, how it is done in student example. Login page obviously to login, and home page is available to everyone who logged in, to cats and dogs. And dog area is seen for users who has role dog, and cat area is seen by users and available to users who has role cat. And obviously, it is not just about hiding links, it's also about security, right? Because hiding links is kind of beautification of your program, so users don't see links that don't work for them. It's not security. Security is about restriction of access, not about just hiding links. It's about making that specific page not available. So when cat tries to go to dog area, it will show access denied error. Not access denied error, but access denied screen. And technically, if a cat doesn't see link, cat probably won't click on it. But some cats are sneaky. They will memorize, find out what is the link, and try to click it, right? So for this reason, besides hiding links, you need to implement security. So if person knows what is the web address, by going to that address, if the person or cat not allowed, so it will show access denied. What I didn't explain, I asked you to use a Bootstrap in this program for practicing. It says explicitly here, practice in designing pages with Bootstrap. And it's also explicitly mentioned here. I forgot to discuss this bottom portion at the previous lesson, so this is what I'm discussing now. Make application look reasonably pretty using Bootstrap. And what I'm looking for, I want to see that you know how to deal with it. So customize it, make different colors, reasonable fonts. Make sure that your pages don't look broken. It's not like text is not starting like directly from H or hitting directly to the right edge, because if you configure it correctly or use it correctly, it won't happen because you will have margins. And if you don't have a margin, it means you did something wrong. This is an obvious misfeature, like a feature. If we do something wrong, you will see it immediately, something obviously misaligned or starting from right from edge of the screen. Also use some images because I want you to show me that you can insert images and pages, including bootstrap pages, reasonable alignments. So practice with it, but don't go into investing huge amount of time because I know that you have other courses to do, you have other assignments to do. So just apply your common sense, and what I need to see that you're comfortable at some reasonable degree with Bootstrap. This is what I want to see. If you want to go in depth, cool, go for it if you have time. If you don't have time, yeah, okay? So this is about beautification of the program. What I didn't discuss before, that I will test it in a browser usual way, and I will open it with imitation of Pixel 5.2. If you don't know how to do it, I'm explaining this now, because you may know it from your web mobile course. But just to make sure, I will show what it means. Here it is. For example, I'm going to Slate page. In order to see how it approximately looks on Pixel 5 device, I need to open Developer Tools. So I do Control-Shift-I, I stands for inspection. Then, after opening Developer Tools, I click this mobile button. When I click on this, I have an option to select imitation of the devices. So if I select Pixel 2, this is how Slate page will look on Pixel 2 device. This is what I mean. So when I grade your work, I will see it in regular browser, and I will see it on imitation. If you did it right with Bootstrap, it will not break, or it won't look unreasonable if I open it on Pixel 2. The same as you see, Slate page does not break. It looks reasonable on Pixel 5, not Pixel 2, Pixel 5 device. So this is what I mean. I'm not sure if it is explained in your web mobile course, probably it is. Just to make sure that you understand what it's about, right? So this is part of assignment 3. And I think this is about everything that I wanted to say about assignment 3. Questions? Yes?
What should be the content of the private space?
Doesn't matter. Yeah. Don't put it empty, because if it is empty, I cannot see that you use it Bootstrap. Put some copy-paste, some image, doesn't matter. Go to Cat's Wikipedia page and copy-paste something. Doesn't matter, just some text and put some image. Okay? Content is not important, it's not dynamic, except dynamic content in this program is about hiding and showing links. For example, if you log in as a dog, you cannot see link to cat area. This is only dynamic content. The rest, just copy-paste something, like from Wikipedia cats, Wikipedia dogs. Put some cat image. More questions? No? So this was about assignment. Now, going back to week 8. And in the week 8, I posted previous lessons. Sound wasn't good. I messed up recording. So you can understand what is going on, but when you listen, you will have some clickish sound in background. I realized that it happened, but it was too late. Already recorded. I cannot remove it. It is mismatching between sampling rate of driver and software that was recording it. Yeah, oops. Okay. But today I fixed this. Now I know how to do it right. So It's about previous one. Previous lesson was about using MySQL as a database server for web application. And it was all about configuration. So we took student data 2 example, and we configured it so it's using MySQL database. When you do assignment 3, please use H2. It is said explicitly. Why? Because it is far simpler to grade if you use H2. Because if you use MySQL and your program, first of all, you need to submit SQL files that you create database, right? So it is more complicated. And when I grade, I will have to set up my database on SQL server, plus running your program. So it is twice more work. So please use H2 as it is described, not MySQL in your assignment. Next. As previously announced several times, we really need to start to use JavaScript seriously, because it's about web application design and implementation, and every program on web is using JavaScript a lot, right? So we cannot ignore this part, and this is what is going to happen starting today and in the future. Maybe not the entire course, but at least for a couple of weeks. So the choice for this course is Angular. There are several reasons why Angular. I discuss it. Quick reminder. First, idea behind Angular is close to what we did in Android. And I know what we did in Android. I can refer to it. Second, Angular is very popular. It's not the first in popularity, but it's probably second or third. Maybe second. First, it is for sure, it is React right now. But you have a course that is using React. It is web mobile development. We don't want to imitate it. We don't want to duplicate it. And if you have some familiarity with Angular and React, it will increase your chances to get a job, obviously. So for this reason, we will use Angular here. And React is for web mobile development course. Second reason why it is Angular, it is code in Angular is well organized, and it's actually forcing you to write reasonable code. It's of course, even if it is forcing you to write reasonable code, but even if we are inventive, we can create bad code. But at least there are some guidelines how to do it, and it's well described, which is not the case for React. Because for React, there is no exact standard how to write well-organized code in React. And since this course is about web application design and implementation, it has keyword design, so maybe using bad design is not a good idea in this course. So just because Angular framework is encouraging and forcing you to write reasonable code in terms of organization of the code, it's probably a way to go in the framework of this course. And it's also very similar in spirit of what we did before in this course. When we studied templates, when we studied backends, templates and inserting data into templates, this is idea behind Angular. React is slightly different. You know what is React, I'm not explaining, right? But in this case, Angular is closer to what we did in Android. So that was a quick overview. What we're going to do today. We have, for the rest of the lesson, we have 2 parts. First part, I'm just discussing what it's about, and hopefully it will not be long. Second part, not 2, 3 parts. A second part, we will create application just by generating it using IDE and see what it's about. Like we did in Android. First thing, we created hello Android or hello whatever, and we created an empty project, and we just had message on the screen, hello Android. And we went through Android app to see what it has. Here's the layout, here's the activity, here's the resources. So we will do that to see how to create empty project. It's not empty like in Android, it has a lot in it, but starting project. How to create starting project and go around. So this will be our first task, to create starting project and go around, see around. Second task for today is to have a reasonable overview. So we won't have much of coding. We will have discussion and looking through code and doing overview for today. I think this approach would be reasonable for first lesson. Definitely we'll have more coding later. Why it is reasonable for the first lesson? To have a general picture, a reasonable general picture. So I made it reasonably simple app, which is not overcomplicated. It is about 1 hour to understand, maybe less, half an hour to understand. But it is not too simple. Because if app is too simple, we cannot see many features in it. We cannot see how it is organized. So I picked an app that can be understood within half an hour or 1 hour. And I just wrote it. And it has you probably had something in Android, maybe even as an assignment. Probably in your course you had assignment in Android, write an app, generate two random numbers. What is 2 times 3? You enter answer, and it shows answer is wrong, answer is right. We also had it for sure in the current course. It was call it multiplication quiz 1 or 2, right? And we did it using templates. We used templates on the server side. You also, in this course, you had exercise. Please pick, in the exercise, it was asking you, pick the server side code for multiplication quiz 2, and change it such way that it behaves as given web program. JavaScript program posted on web. It was one of the exercises closer to probably week 5. Yeah, this one. It was asking you, pick multiplication quiz 2, discuss it in class, look through, and implement try again feature, like, not unlike. Okay, this doesn't have try again feature, but unlike similar Angular application posted here, it does. This has. Make this feature available in multiplication quiz 2. So that was exercise. Hopefully some of you at least tried. And this is the app. So this is what I'm explaining. So it is not overcomplicated. It does have input, output. It is changing pages. So this is example for today. It has multiple features in it, inputs, outputs, and page turning. And when you started to learn JavaScript, and even in your React course, web mobile design, you realize that turning pages is not such a trivial task, surprisingly, right? In JavaScript. Because in JavaScript, if you literally implement several pages, they separate HTML files. Somehow you need to get data from one and put it into another one. One of the options is to use local storage to share data in between. But if you progress with the complexity, you will realize that multiple virtual page like this, right? It is not such a trivial thing, actually, right? So today we will see how to do it. Technically, it is what we see is single page application. So this is what it is. Why it is single page application? First, what I see, it is new problem. And it appears like it has an address, new _ problem. So let's put some answer, what is 45, right? And submit this answer. It shows check answer address, right? It appears like this is different web address. But we know it is JavaScript program, and at the place where we host it, right, we cannot have it. because we cannot put Java program there, we cannot put C#. We can only, on this specific server, we have only PHP available. So we cannot have any meaningful server side on this server. So what is this? It's a fake. It's a fake. It is the internal feature of Angular to do navigation. So it is this piece what we see on the screen, check_answer address. It is not a web address. It is something generated in a browser for sake of navigation. So Angular has built-in feature to do navigation. Why it is single page? It is single page because only this piece is actually changing by JavaScript. The rest is, it's actually staying on the screen. So it is like our Android navigation within main activity. We have something on top, something on bottom. We have a window where we insert fragments. And only content of the window or the frame where we insert fragments is changing. Top bar is updating because of API calls, but it is still the same API. It is the same. It's the same toolbar. When we go from one page to another in Android app, top portion is not reloading. And if we have something at the bottom, it's not changing either. We have frame where we do fragment transactions. So this is behavior here. This is literally single page all around. And we have a portion of it. I specifically put div around with the frame, just to show the frame. And only this piece is actually replaced by JavaScript when we go from one page to another. So we shouldn't say it multiple page. It is single page, running on the same address, and this is imitation for internal reasons of navigation. And these addresses appear in the browser. They don't exist on server side at all. What exists on the server side? Index.html exists. And this is it. So we will look, no, of course, a lot of JavaScript also. JavaScript, images, but this page is index.html. This is how it is implemented. And a lot of the help comes from Angular. So hopefully you appreciate the power of Angular, right? At least to some degree. React can do it, but not alone, because React it is not a framework. It is kind of tool to create GUI layout, right? It doesn't have any navigation built in, but it can use navigation from other components. It doesn't have any persistence built in, like between pages, but it can use it from other things. So React itself is not complete picture. In order to make it complete, you have to use other libraries. And so you learned about in your web mobile course. Angular is different. In this case, it is mostly complete on its own, so it has all these features. It's like probably Android. Android what we have, a Jetpack. So most of the stuff that we need is already there. And if we need extra library to load the image, we just use that library or something like that. So this is an overview difference between React and Angular. So where to get information? And obviously you get some information by looking through the code. But it's not a primary source of information, it's illustration. Illustration how to do something simple like that. Primary source would be, of course, a page related to Angular and page related to TypeScript. There are also tutorials. Tutorials takes a while to go through, but consider going through. And so let me show sources. Of course, I will explain some stuff in class. So our lessons is also a source of information. And since they're video recorded, you can rewatch it if you want. But remember Android course. There is a page, developerandroid.com, which is well maintained, and almost everything is there if you look carefully. The same exists in Angular and TypeScript. So let's talk about TypeScript. TypeScript is a language, and it's a language compiled to JavaScript. So why it's called type? Because it is typed language. At least it pretends to be typed language. But so we cannot mismatch types, and if we try to mismatch it, it shows error message. One of the typical sources of error in JavaScript, we mismatch type and it's crashing and misbehaves because we mismatched types by accident. In addition, TypeScript has more features than JavaScript. So another reason why we're using Angular, it is to have some introduction into TypeScript. Because we discussed this with Magdin, and TypeScript is not used in any course in your program. So some exposure to this language is a good idea. You can put it on your resume. So you have some knowledge of it. So it will help you at least in the job search. So it's another reason why using Angular, because it's using TypeScript. React can use TypeScript, but it's not in that course, at least officially, at least now. Maybe next year it will be, but not now. I think I'm correct, right? React in your course is used by JavaScript, with JavaScript. And Angular by default is using TypeScript. Don't be alarmed by the fact that it's different programming language. It's easy to learn. It is super easy to learn. Because it is similar to JavaScript, it's similar to Kotlin, it is, and you are familiar with both, right? It's also similar to C# and Java, and features are quite, say, common across. Learning curve, 2 hours. So it's not a big deal. You look through rules of it, and you just apply what you learned in Kotlin, Java. Just if you forgot something specific, you look it up. So in this sense, TypeScript is, I would say it's closer to Kotlin than to anything else, because Kotlin was created after TypeScript, so they could learn useful stuff from C#, from TypeScript, combine it and make something out of it. So way to find information. One of the sources, it is this course, surely, but it's not enough. So let me close this part. In the content, I have a folder called resources. In the resources, I put Angular documentation and TypeScript documentation. First, it's probably better to look at TypeScript, because Angular program is written in TypeScript, so it's something about language. You will see some code today with explanation, so obviously something comes from today's lesson. But what is about? This is good. This is good due to 2 things. Probably this is not such a great piece, because it is for new programmers, it's for people who didn't program. And you are not in this area. TypeScript for JavaScript programmers. You are familiar with JavaScript to some degree. First thing to look. It discusses what is the differences and how it is in JavaScript, but this is how it is in TypeScript. And this is also a good place, because you are familiar with Java and C#. So it is comparison between TypeScript and C# and Java. These 2 pieces are probably the first to look through, and handbook is useful, but at the time, it is useful as looking through. So just browse through so you know what is available in case you need it, so you look it up when you need it. So this is where to look for information in case you need something extra or you forgot how it was in class, to look it up. So primary, these 2, and handbook. It's good. This is really good. So don't ignore this part. There are also tutorials on TypeScript and Angular. I will talk about Angular separately. So this is linked in resources TypeScript documentation. It's not just documentation, it is tutorial comparisons, so this is good. Please, Angular. This is also not just Angular, not just documentation, it's getting started, understanding, and tutorial. And this tutorial is, I'll say, a couple hours long, for sure. It is not overcomplicated, so maybe looking through, it's a good idea. We will not go through this tutorial in class for a simple reason that you can do it on your own, and duplicating something that you can just read is not a great idea, because I prefer to explain something which is not immediately obvious as just reading tutorial. But this, don't ignore, this is good. So this is two additional sources. There are also tutorials on Angular on Linda. Linda is called now linked-in learning. I went through that. Useful? Don't ignore it. Useful. Unfortunately, it has two elementary examples, but it has most of the features for the today example. So it's not too I wouldn't call it too elementary. It's quite advanced, but not huge. So it's some degree. So there are also other things I will refer as we go. And this is just overview where to find information. Next step. Next step is where? Here it is in resources. There is nothing else here. The rest is already used in Spring Framework. By the way, we are not abandoning Spring. No. The goal is to have something running in some program running in JavaScript that connects to backend to retrieve data. And on the back end, we will have Spring Framework providing data to Angular. So this is the goal. It is full stack development. It's called. We have back end, we have front end, and we have interaction between front end and back end. So the goal is maybe second week will be just Angular, and after this we go to combination of both. We have back end using database to store data, retrieve data, sending JSON, and JSON is receive it by Angular and display it, and we have data exchange. So this is the goal. It's full stack development. So we are not just switching to Angular and forgetting first half of the course. Not at all. It will be both. Next, we are going to use IntelliJ to create an Angular program. If you go to tutorials on Linda or other tutorials, most likely they use Visual Studio Code. You know, Visual Studio Code, it's a quite popular JavaScript program that can do really a lot, right? Almost every language is supported. And it's free. It's probably the reason why it is popular in Angular, and people use Angular, this for Angular. This is this is a reasonable choice too. But since we started to use IntelliJ IDEA and Angular is well supported there, I would prefer just to keep going with it. IntelliJ IDEA is not free. Probably this is why it's not in tutorials, because license is quite expensive. It is free to you because you're a student, and free to me because I'm a teacher, but license is quite expensive. This is probably why tutorials are using Visual Studio Code. Not because it is a lot better, it is comparable in features, but it's probably for Angular, it's comparable. But for Spring development, for sure, IntelliJ is better, no question about it. For Spring development, IntelliJ IDEA is better. Next step to do. I assume that this step is already done. But in case it's not done, I'm telling you about it. In order to do anything with Angular, you need to have Node.js installed. And because it's using Node.js under the hood to compile stuff. And I think it is already installed because you are taking web mobile course, web mobile development course. Any kind of installation of Node.js is fine. If you didn't install, just go by default with it. Download, go to this download link, Windows installer, next, click next, 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 next. Okay, installation. Takes like 3 minutes. So if you, again, if you are not taking a web mobile course right now, probably it's not installed. It really depends on your scheduling, how you arrange things. So please install it because we cannot do anything unless you install it. Installation is quick, like 3 minutes. Please do it. So this is about Node.js. Next, let's create simple project. Hello, Angular. I'm opening IntelliJ, the same software that we used before. But creating Angular project is not the same as creating Spring Boot project because it's different language, different framework, right? So I click New Project. And in your case, Spring Initializer is selected by default because our previous, not by default, it just remembers your previous selection. Right? Because our previous projects were created using Spring Initializer, so this is how you see it. In order to create Angular project, you need to click JavaScript and Angular CLI. CLI stands for Command Line Interface. AngularJS, it is the legacy software. You don't invest time into learning it. It is deprecated already. Okay? It is previous version of Angular. And it was done in regular JavaScript, not TypeScript, and internal organizations, it's completely different. It's like different project. So AngularJS is very different from anything else. AngularJS, its first version, and it is version 1. And it was called AngularJS. Starting with version 2, it is Angular, just Angular without WordJS. So you select Angular CLI. CLI stands for Command Line Interface. It doesn't mean that we will do everything from typing in command line. Of course, we will use GUI. But command line is very useful in this case because it helps us to generate a lot of code automatically. Also, GUI itself is using command line under the hood to do things. So I select Angular CLI and I click Next. When we create project, the same way we need to give a name and make sure that we're creating folder for project. Angular project contains a lot of files. It's like an Android project even more. It's like you will have around 1,000 files per project. It's just crazy. So, but of course it will be in internal folders. But Angular project contains a lot of files. Make sure you have a folder per file. Otherwise it will mess up outside folder with insane amount of files. Okay? So let's give it a name, Hello Angular. And again, make sure it is in the place where you like it to be. I created folder Angular for my Angular projects. And this is also, make sure you have a folder per project. Speaking about folders of Angular projects. Like in Android, you have a folder for compilation that has a lot of intermediate files in it, right? But when application is compiled, it is reasonable size. It's not huge. The same about Angular. But ratio is a lot bigger. A compilation folder may take like 100 megs or even 200 megs. Literally, this is that bad. But application is very small. You know, just regular website size. because it is processing libraries, picking up only necessary things from library, optimizing. So outcome will eventually be very small when you upload it on web. But folder itself will be insane. So if you have like 5 apps, maybe it will probably around 1 gig of hard drive space. This is by default, you don't need to change it. If you have Node installed, it will find it. And this is by default. Now click Finish, and just a little bit patience, like in Android. We have to sit in a little bit relaxing for a couple minutes till it is building the app. So the generated project, although it's empty, it's not empty. You will have something there. It's equivalent, it is empty activity. When you create Android project with empty activity, it's not really empty project, right? The same as here. It has basic features in it. It's still building, so scroll, install. And now it is downloading some libraries. This is why it takes a while. And please notice it says successfully initialized Git. When we create a project for Android or create project for Spring or Spring Boot, Git is not initialized. We need to go version control system, and we need to link project to Git. But in this case, it's already there. You see? It's already activated Git. Plus, it's already did first commit into Git. So if we click Git tab, we will see initial commit. So when we create a project, it will initialize Git, and it will commit original code in the project as the first commit. So this is the starting point. Next, looking through code. There are configuration files, like build files, instructions, what libraries to include. It's all here. But let's open source and index.html. This is that page, and it is the only page, essentially. The rest of the magic is done by JavaScript in it. Obviously, it is not obviously. It is not the index page that you see on the server, because it's still processed. So it is input index page. Output index page is different. The Angular project is compiled. It is combining JavaScript and HTML and eventually produce something else. Not something else. Combination of JavaScript and HTML, but in a different combination of it. So it is not the same index page what you see, but what you see eventually in a browser will be based on it. So what is inside of it? We have meta, title, fav icon, right? And Epp Route. So what is Epp Route? It's a placeholder where the rest of the app goes. And as you see, it's taking everything in the body, nothing special. Nothing on top, nothing below. So app will be inside of the body of index page. So in our first apps, we don't edit it, because entire piece, what we do, it is inserted here automatically. So we will edit things that will be inserted in this place in our first apps. Okay? So this is the idea about index.html. Okay? App actually will be inserted here. There is also styles, and this is shared piece. That global styles, global CSS. Speaking about CSS, it will be CSS specific for component that is inserted in a window, or specific for footer, like we had, right? Footer CSS. So it will be globals and specific ones. Next. assets. This folder is empty, but this folder has a similar purpose to resources folder in Android in terms of not for layouts. Layouts in Android, it's also in resources, but it's different. In terms of like images go there, some additional global CSS may go there, some maybe data file. So it is shared. It's kind of resources. In Android, you can also have assets for the same purpose, actually. In app, let's talk. This is the most interesting for now. So what do we have here? App component, TypeScript code, CSS, and HTML. So idea is similar to Android. We have layout, define it as CSS and HTML. And we have a script, this script, that is updating these two pieces. In Android analogy, app component is main activity. Other things will be inserted into this component. So it is like main activity. If we have some page change or navigation page, it will be happening inside of app component. So when we created this project, essentially we created like empty activity project in Android. We have some layout and some code associated with the layout. What is this? Modules use it to organize code into pieces. Technically, we can have more than one module per app, similar to Android. In your Android course, we had only one module called app. So I was lazy. I didn't create several modules in that. Here currently we have one module, and in the next example we will also have one module. So in Angular you can have several modules for purpose of organization of the code. So you have a like building block. In this module, it mentions components that belongs to the module. So in this case, it is mentioning app component and browser module to display stuff in the browser. It is importing browser module. So let's talk about these two pieces. HTML, it's layout, and it comes with things in it. And so it's not really empty. When we run the app, we will see a page. Typically, we need to delete this and insert our own code. It is just placeholder to show some page. And so this is page. And if we look carefully, we will find this is just CSS, just embedded in page. And when we look carefully, we will see that at some point, it looks like it has insert in it. Scrolling. Okay. I need to zoom, right? Because it's not easy to see. So I will zoom it. I will change fonts. Settings, editor, font. Here it is. Now it's easier to see, right? Okay. Toolbar, welcome, content. Here it is. Looks like some piece where we want to insert something, right? Because something app is running. And this is title, it's probably title of the app. So where it's coming from? It is coming from this code, component TS. So let's open component TS. We will see class with instance variable title. And the type is string. TypeScript, it is using types, but using types are not enforced. So you can declare a variable without actually type if you want. If you want to be specific about type in TypeScript, you use column and use type string. In this case, it is string. Okay, so this is how type is declared. Like in Kotlin, it's a reverse, not like in C#, right? In C# you write type and variable name. In this case, it is reversed. Also, this belongs to a class, so it is instance variable. And everything is public by default, like in Kotlin. In TypeScript, like in JavaScript, everything is public by default. You can use private keyword. And if it is private, value stays within the class. You cannot access it from outside. You can type word public if you want, but public is by default. So it will not do anything if you add it. It will just maybe add clarity, but it is by default public. Why it is export? In TypeScript, all classes are local to file. So if we want this class visible outside of the file, we need to write export in front of the class. And the idea for this class to be visible outside of the file, so this is why it is exported. It is this export also rule applies to functions and variables. If we want some functional variable be available from outside of the file, we need to export it. And we need to import it into another file. So TypeScript has import statements, like Java or Kotlin. So in this case, we're importing some annotation, this class, for annotation from this library. We can import some from our own file, the same as in Java or in Kotlin. But in order to be able to import, we have to export it here explicitly. So today's example with multiplication has import and export for customized purpose. You will see. If you declare something inside of a class, mark it with component, this piece will be available in the layout. This is why we are able to insert title. So insertion of the data inside of layout looks similar to what we learned, but it's a lot easier. Because we already have association between code and layout, and everything which is public in the code is available directly inside of layout. We don't need to add it to the model, how we do it in Spring. We don't need to select something from binding and assign to it. We will just mention this in the layout, and it will be inserted. So idea is simpler, but it is quite close, right? So this is how title appears on this page. See, every component may have own CSS. And in this annotation, we have typically selector. What is selector? Selector, it is how component is called inside of layout. Remember that my index page has app-route, right? So this is how given component is called inside of layout. So this is the meaning of selector. See, selector. This is layout associated with given CS component, right? APP component HTML, you saw it. And this is CSS associated with that. You can have more than one if you, since this, you see this is array. It is JavaScript array. You can have array of CSSs associated with specific component. So you create several files and use it comma separated. Because this is array. So let's run it and see what it does. Right? So I run it. And it is compiling. In gsurf, this is how to start it from command line. So if you go to terminal and type in gsurf, it will do the same as you click run here. Now it says compiled successfully, and when you click on this link, it will open browser that shows the page. And this is the title that was inserted, Angular, Hello Angular. This page, maybe sometimes it is updated automatically, but it's not 100%, okay? Doesn't always work 100%. So when you work on it and it's running, obviously you may end up in some broken code when you just work on the code, right? So what happens? When you work on the code, it's probably better to remove, and if you stop it if you do some extensive changes, because you will end up with error messages, just tons of error messages on the screen. So in my choice, if I change a lot, I stop it from running. But if change is very small, like I'm changing CSS or just renaming, changing content of a string, I keep it running and it will show update the screen. Right? What happens if it doesn't update the screen? You can click Save button and it will update. If click Save button does not update the screen, you can stop and run it again. So this is a choice. Usually it updates the screen. If it doesn't, click Save. If it doesn't help, stop and run again. Another thing that may help, just reload, also helps. But in many cases, it will update it without reload. So let's just do something straightforward. Instead of hello Angular, we say hello to Angular from Sheridan, okay? To see if it is changing, okay? Hello to Angular. Hello to Angular from Sheridan. It didn't update yet, but we can force it if we click Save. Save all. See, hello to Angular from Sheridan. I didn't need to click Reload, but if it's not updating, you can try Reload or restart it. Okay. So for small changes, you can see effect immediately. For example, if you work on CSS or HTML. This is a general overview of a project that is empty. Obviously, this contains a lot of stuff. Right? It's definitely a way to look how to create this imitation of motion. But when you create new project, typically we just delete this thing, right? So I want to stop at this moment, and maybe we should have break. And after break, we will open another example, and that is more interesting because it has navigation, it has several components, and we will discuss that one.